Thank you very much for coming to the residences at Valley Farm. A brand new place here in wonderful Ashland to talk about assisted living, which is what this is. My name is Arthur Bergeron. I'm an attorney at Myrick O'Connell. There are 60 of us at Myrick O'Connell doing a whole number of things. I do nothing but elder law. And so I do a lot of presentations like this, because what elder law really is about is not necessarily a lot about law and having you know particular laws, but having you understand kind of what your options are as an older person to figure out how you can live the rest of your life. My typical clients are my friends Frank and Mary here, that I talk about a lot, and their children Peter, Paul, and Mary Jr. Frank and Mary have very simple goals in life. They want to live in their house until they die. They have assets, they have a house, and I'm just using, for these purposes, the fact that the house is worth about $600,000. Frank has an IRA worth about $200,000. They have an annuity worth $75,000. They have bank accounts worth $75,000. They have total assets of $950,000. A house worth about $600,000, and other assets worth about $350,000. Frank is on Social Security and a pension, so he's got total income of $2,000 a month. Mary's got income of about $1,000 a month. So their income total is $3,000 a month, or $36,000 a year. They've been doing okay. They don't have a mortgage. They've been living at home. And their goal is to live at home until they die. They want to live at home until they die. They want to be buried in the backyard. This is a very common life goal for most of my clients. If one of them dies, they'd like to leave everything to the other one, and then after that, they'd like to leave things to their kids. So the question for them is, can they live at home until they die? And if they can, if they're feeling well enough, if they're healthy enough, if they're not worried about slipping and falling, and they still feel like mowing the lawn, right? Or raking the leaves, or shoveling the snow, and if the neighborhood is still a wonderful place to live, that is, everybody hasn't moved away, because I know a lot of my clients, like Frank and Mary, have been living in the same house all their lives, but everybody else has left. And so their neighborhood itself isn't what it was because there aren't the same people to visit with and stuff. So if you're not in that situation, then maybe you want to consider, and you know, by the way, one of the things that they all agree is I'm never, ever, ever going to a nursing home. Frank and Mary are like to shoot themselves before they go to a nursing home. But the question is, how can they make sure that that's going to happen, right? And it may be that, because I always tell folks, I say, you know, you can live in your home to a ripe old age as long as you don't fall down. But if you fall down, somebody breaks their hip, that's kind of a one-way ticket. And that's how a lot of people end up in a nursing home, is just because they didn't live in a safe enough environment. So in that situation, they may decide that they want to consider assisted living. So we want to talk about that tonight. I've asked my friend Deb Gittner to come over to talk to you about it, because Deb is a geriatric care manager. I tell people that and they say, what is that? Well, a geriatric care manager, this is a field that has really evolved over the last about 20 years. You have people who typically were either social workers or nurses who decided that they wanted to focus on helping people who are older figure out how to manage a whole variety of things, from your meds and doctors and the social situation, kind of how to manage everything so that you can kind of live happily ever after. And Deb is just, I think, one of the best geriatric care managers that I found anywhere around here, together with her partner, Linda Sullivan. And so I asked Deb to talk a little bit about, from their perspective, when they're talking to people who are in your situation, what they tell them, what the issues are, what the do's and don'ts are, and in terms of, first, is it appropriate to be thinking about an assisted living? And then secondly, so if it is, what do you look for in an assisted living, right? So she's going to talk about that. Then I'm going to ask my friend Dixie Imon, who was here at the residences of Valley Farm, to talk about this place and what's special about here. And then I want to come back and I want to talk a little bit about money, because I know that for many of my clients, they'll tell me that the real issue here is they're afraid they're going to run out of money. They don't want to go to assisted living because they're afraid they're going to run out of money. And I want to talk about the reasons why, for many, many people, that's really not a worry, or it shouldn't be a worry. But we're going to talk about that.
I'm Debbie Gittner, a licensed certified social worker, and my business partner, Linda Sullivan, who could not be here tonight, is an RN. And Together, we are Elder Care Resource Services, which is the name of our business, and as Arthur said, we are geriatric care managers. The field of geriatric care managers has been changing over the last year, and as part of our national association, they've changed the name to Aging Life Care Association. And many of us are now in the transition of calling ourselves geriatric care managers or aging life care professionals, aging life care specialists. And to
You're
tell
kidding,
you
I have to learn this new term?
this new term, aging life care specialists.
Okay.
Because we want to continue to forge on in this field as professionals, and for anybody who hires an aging life care specialist, a geriatric care manager, what you need to know is that we are certified through our national organization to do what we're doing, so that we have credentials behind us. What we do, and what Linda and I do, is we go out and we help families in their situation. It can be figuring out, how do I stay home, how do I make it work, what needs to be brought in. It could be, I don't want to stay home anymore, I can't manage this house, the house has become too large for me, I don't want to be there. Winter last year was horrible, we had 100 inches of snow plus. This is the time to now think about where you want to be during the winter time. People go to the hospital. Things rush in the hospital. How do I navigate the hospital system? I don't understand what the doctors are saying, or they're telling me I have to leave and I'm not ready to leave and I need to go to a rehabilitation facility to get stronger. So as geriatric care managers or aging life care professionals, we are able to reduce stress and anxiety for our clients, which is the person, the senior, oftentimes it's the senior going through this, and help the family. We refer to experts, such as Arthur, as elder law attorney, and we make recommendations such as many places, and one of our favorite is here, the residents of Valley Farm, because it is such a very good facility, as Dixie will tell us. What is an assisted living? It's a social model, and people have to remember that it does not provide medical care with 24-hour nurses that you would get in a nursing home. It's a wonderful place to live. They are designed to meet the individual needs of those who need some help with personal care. When you're looking for assisted livings, there are 3 models here in Massachusetts. One being independent, one being a traditional model, and one being a memory care. And it's important to find the one that you need. The independent model, completely independent. Some people are still driving their car, some people are not. You do not need any assistance with bathing, grooming, dressing. You're still very independent, oftentimes still very sharp. Maybe a little bit of memory forgetfulness, but we all have that no matter what age we are. And it's typically someone who just doesn't want to manage the house anymore, who wants to be in an environment where there's activities, socialization, and people. You have your own apartment, you bring in your own home furnishings, it's your home, it's the way you set it up, but there's other people to meet and to have a discussion with. And you don't have to worry about snow removal. The assisted living model is also a social setting. There is help with personal care. The nurse is not in the building 24/7, but there is a nurse in the building during the day. And there are 3 very good meals per day. I've had the meals here, and I will tell you, the chef really caters to everybody here, very much caters and personalizes the meals, and will go out of their way to meet everybody and to really customize the meals here. And again, even the assisted in the traditional model, you bring in your own furniture, you set up the apartment the way that you want, you have 3 meals a day, but there is a nurse in the building who you can go to if there's an issue or a concern. She's limited in her function, but there is a nurse in the building. In the traditional model, you continue to see your own primary care physician, Some facilities, like the facility here, has a physician that will come in, or a nurse practitioner that will come in, so you don't even have to go out in the winter to see your own physician. But you can still see your own specialists. You can go see your eye doctor, anybody else, your cardiologist. If you need physical therapy, they come to you here. So you don't lose any of the services that you would have at home. You continue to have them here. The memory loss is often for people who have progressed with their dementia, who have a cognitive loss that requires 24/7 assistance and 24/7 help. There are activities geared for people who have cognitive loss. They have unlimited help throughout the day with bathing and grooming and dressing. It's often a locked unit, not so much that people need to be in a locked unit, but just because of the safety and the risk that with memory loss you may wander away or walk out of the unit, and nobody wants anybody to get lost. There's a higher staff ratio on the memory loss unit, and many of them, like I said earlier, have the activities geared for the people with memory loss. There's also something called a blended model, and that is blending independent and traditional. So instead of having to move, say you move in and you're still very independent, there's a medical event and now you start to need care with personal care. You can still stay in your apartment and you don't have to move to another community or another side of the building. And the residents at Valley Farm here offers that ability to stay in your apartment even as you need more care. You have to think of the assisted living as this is your home, this is where you are, this is just like it is at home. You watch your own television, but this is your home. In all communities, in all assisted livings, there is a community fee that everybody pays at the very beginning. All of the assisted living offers a community fee. But the blended model it's very nice when the facilities offer it because you don't have to move, and that's the key. You can stay and age in place. How do you find a good assisted living? You have to think about the person. That's the key to all of this. Is someone very social? Then you look very closely at the activities to see that there are activities that will be of interest. If somebody does not like activities, if somebody has always lived alone, not too many friends, enjoys watching television when they eat the news, then you know what? Ask the question, can I have a meal in my apartment when I want it? Do I have to come out to all the activities? What if I choose to stay in my apartment because that's the way I've always lived? Is it somebody who likes to make friends easily? You want a community that you feel comfortable in. You want a community that there's a lot of friendly people if you're outgoing and you want to have friends to play bridge or read the newspaper and have a dialogue about politics. That can get very heated, but it can be also very good for a lot of people who enjoy having that dialogue. What are your favorite foods? Look at the menu. Are the foods offered? Will the chef try to cater to your interests? Or do you always have to get the one standard meal and no options? What is your personal style? Do you like a place that has a lot of glitz? Or is a more home-like environment more comfortable for you? And again, you find the place that works for you.
Because they do vary tremendously.
They really do vary, and you get a feel. I compare it to trying on a piece of clothing. Sometimes you go and you're looking for a new suit, and you see, the store says, well, we've got 20 black suits here. Do you want ones with buttons here and cuffs or no cuffs? And it feels right. When you find the suit that fits and feels comfortable on you, you go, that's the one I'm going to take, that's what I want. And the same thing with the assisted living. It feels right. The people just feel right. When you take a tour, you want to ask about the staff ratio. You want to ask, do they do query checks? Do they look to see if they have a criminal record? You want to compare the cost. You want to look at the menus. You want to ask about the activities. And you want to see if there is If you enjoy playing bridge, is there a bridge group? Or will they be willing to maybe bring us people here? Would they be interested in trying to bring in a bridge group or anything else? You want to ask about medications. How are they dispensed? Can I take it myself? How often are there increases in rent? Everything goes up every year, and oftentimes it's a one-year contract, so you need to ask, how often does the increase go up, and what does it usually go up, what percentage? Is there someone available 24/7? What is the role of the nurse? Do physicians come in? And what is the policy if there's a complaint? Life is not perfect, there's always a complaint at times. Not on a daily basis, we hope, but there's always a complaint every once in a while. How do they resolve it? Who do they go to, and do people seem to listen? Always, this is very important, read the agreement. They will give you a contract. Read the agreement. We also strongly encourage everyone to have a lawyer read it. It's written by an attorney, so by the company, so you need to have a lawyer read the agreement so that you know what's written down. Ask about a service plan. This is usually a plan that they'll put together about services that they can provide to you. And read it and make sure that it's everything there that you want. Housekeeping, how often it comes in. Food, if you're sick, can you have food brought up to your room? Is there a charge? Ask about any extra fees. A respite program allows someone to move in for a month and try the facility. You keep your furnishings at home and you move in for a month and give it a try. Only costs 1 month's rent, and you have the opportunity to move in and get an idea and experience it. This is a great program, especially when it's winter time. Ask if there's any government assistance programs or low-income units. For some people, it's the way to move in. It's the only way to move in, and you need to move to a complex, an assisted living that offers some low-income programs. And also ask what happens if the money runs out.
That was terrific. Thank you very much. So that really kind of gives you a sense of what the questions are that you want to ask. I was hoping that Dixie Emon could come up and talk to us a little bit about this place, about the residents of Valley Farm. As Deb had mentioned, one of the exciting things about this place is that it is designed as a community where you can live in for the rest of your life, even if your health changes, right? Because of course that's one of the issues. As we get older, you're saying to yourself, I feel pretty good right now, but you don't know how this is going to work out. And if you're Frank and Mary, it was bad enough that you moved out of your house. You don't want to ever have to move again. So that's one of the goals. So Dixie, can we talk a little bit about this place? And then I'm going to come back and talk a little bit about money.
Right. Thank you, Arthur.
There you go. Remember, that's forward, that's back.
I'm actually not using this.
But that's right, that's right. In that case, I'll keep it quick.
Okay. Are we good to go? Wonderful. Thank you so much, Arthur and Debbie. Welcome everybody to the residents at Valley Farm. We're an LCB senior living community. We've been open now in Ashland since September 1st. We opened well over a month ahead of schedule, which is very much unheard of in our industry. But really what I'm here tonight to do is to talk about this community in particular. We have 80 rental apartments here. 60 of those are in our independent and assisted, as Deb explained earlier, our traditional fully integrated and blended community. We also have 20 apartments on the first floor of this community, which are our memory care, which we refer to as reflections. And of those 22 are companion suites. So why would someone move in here? When is it time? It really varies. There are a lot of people out there that might live locally and they've been living in their home for many years, very confidently and happily, but they're just starting to hit a point where they are not, as Deb mentioned earlier, they're tired of having to maintain the upkeep and expense and time for a home. Homes are a lot of work. I have one, I know. Just, the plowing, the gardening, the cleaning, the meal preparation, the shopping, the maintenance, electricity, everything. One of the things that's nice about a community such as ours is that everything is included. It really takes away some of the time and effort that you're spending on paying bills every month, keeping track of the groceries in the refrigerator, having to plan your meals. And meal planning is important. You want to be eating nourishing food. You want to stay hydrated. That's really important for our health as we get older. It's important all the time, but especially as we get older. So a community such as this is really going to optimize one's health via nourishment, good food, and sociability. I know people firsthand who have maybe had a large home, maybe their spouse passed away and they just had downsized maybe even to a condo, but they still reached a point where they didn't wish to be driving anymore, they didn't wish to be preparing meals anymore, and frankly a lot of their friends had moved away, but they wanted to stay maybe locally because their kids were here. So we have folks like that choose to move into this community, We also have people that have kids in the Ashland community where maybe mom and dad have moved to Florida or North or South Carolina, and they're getting calls like, mom had a fall, dad had a fall, or dad went into the hospital, and the children are in a position now, the adult children, if you will, who have to decide, who's hopping on the plane next to go see mom or dad. It isn't an easy thing. Obviously, all the kids want to be there for their parents, but it just gives you an idea of what has prompted some people to consider making a move to a senior living community such as ours. As Deb explained earlier, we are independent, assisted, and memory care. We have many different services and amenities that really cater to our residents. I can't say enough, this is their home. We are here to help facilitate programming, make sure scheduling is such that we have our chef, we have our wait staff, and everything runs smoothly. But this is one's home, and we take that very, very seriously. A couple of the things that we do have here that maybe one won't find at many different communities, we have anytime dining for our residents. So if someone likes to sleep in, they can sleep in. If they prefer to have eggs for breakfast but don't wish to have them at noontime, they may have them at noontime. If you have a doctor's appointment and you find that you get delayed in your appointment, which can often happen, and you get back to the community, your home, at 2:30, you don't have to worry about being back in time for lunch. There's no schedule there here. And what's nice about that, it's just another way to keep one empowered. As we get older, if you're not driving anymore, or you're not maintaining the house, and some of your friends and family have moved away, sometimes you feel like you're not controlling everything that you'd like to as much as you used to. So that's just one little way that someone can still regain their empowerment. We also, as Deb alluded to here, we have a lot of very good staff here. We have a wonderful team. Our resident care director is our head nurse, if you will, and she oversees the medical nursing staff, I should say. And when I say nursing staff, we have nurses here at the residence at Valley Farm from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. We have CNAs on board. CNAs. Certified Nursing Assistants, excuse me. Sorry, Arthur. I get boggled down sometimes in the lingo, but they are here 24/7. All of our residents that move in have an emergency response pendant, and it has a built-in GPS. So if Carol comes here for an activity and she decides to go to the ladies' room down the hall and heaven forbid has a fall and hits her button, we know that Carol in room 201 is in distress, and we know where she is. It's not that it's just Carol from 201, where did she go? We know, oh, she's in the second floor activity restroom.
That's correct.
So that's really important. We do, as Deb mentioned, we have a nurse practitioner affiliated with our community to see our residents. We also have on-site dentistry, a podiatrist that comes in. We have physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. Those folks are all associated with us, some of them on-site, to enable our residents the freedom to live full, active lives without having to spend time and figure out if they don't drive anymore, how am I going to get to the next doctor's appointment, etc. We have a van here for scheduled transportation as well as for excursions and different activities. So our residents are able to go to their physician within a 12-mile radius on 2 days scheduled a week. I don't know yet which days they're going to be, but we do offer that service, and that's included in one's rent. The rental fee, if you will, that is here as part of the residents at Valley Farm does include everything, your lights, your electricity, everything except for your phone and your TV. Well, if you're still driving, we'll remove the snow off your car, which is also a nice benefit. I think one of the things to keep in mind is how important it is, Arthur alluded to this earlier, that sometimes if we live in one house for a long time, or even if we've, transplanted ourselves from one area of the country to another, as we get older, sometimes our friends move away, they move closer to their children and what have you, and sociability, I can't emphasize enough, is really important. It's important to have a sense of purpose, it's important to have the opportunity to foster relationships, and that's something that the residents at Valley Farm does. Already I've seen here in the short time that we've been open in the past month, relationships develop, friendships are starting to develop, people look after one another, and that's wonderful to see. Purpose, sociability, having exercise programs, those are all really key and part and parcel for all of us as we get older to maintain active, healthy lifestyles. Thank you.
Dixie, thank you very much. So as you can see, by the way, Dixie is terrific, but she's not unusual. If you're moving to assisted living, you're going to find people who, they don't do this kind of work because they were grouchy all their lives, right? They do this kind of work because they like talking to people, right? So this is not actually, the program is not meant as like an ad for the residents of Valley Farm. Although one of the reasons why we wanted to do it here, and why the folks at Ashland Cable TV were kind enough to come and film this, because they filmed a lot of the presentations that I've done, because this is a brand new local asset, here in Ashland is this place. But I wanted to now talk a little bit about I wanted to mention one other thing. One of the things about what Dixie just described really reflects what's happening in the industry. And that is that these places used to be much more standardized, right? There were only a few assisted livings 15 years ago, and they all looked kind of the same. Whereas now, because of the greater competition, you can really look around and find a place that really fits what you're looking for. So that's one of the goals of the exercise, is to look around, as Deb had talked about. You're going to find a place that fits right. I was talking to somebody earlier who is here tonight, who talked about the fact that she just felt that this place really fit. She lived down the street in Sherburne and lived there for a long, over 90 years, right? But found, and I would bet that she, when she came here, figured, I don't think I want to move again. I moved once, and that's plenty, right? So I think a lot of times you really want to be finding that place that you feel really comfortable with because you don't want to be moving. And that's another feature that Dixie had just talked about, which is once again unusual, but showing up more now. This whole notion that you can move into one of these communities and stay in the same place the rest of your life. Because services around you may change, but you're not going to be moving inside the building. So when I talk to folks about these issues, a lot of times the issue is they don't even consider assisted living because they just say, oh, this is just going to cost too much money. And I don't want to run out of money before I die. And I can get that, None of us want to run out of, that's a big goal of all of my clients, is to not run out of money before they die. So I want to talk about that a little bit. And talk about the fact that I guess, I'm going to do some numbers, I'm going to do quite a few numbers, and you don't want to get buried in the math. What you want to do is remember as an overview that the point is there are a lot of options that you have here to extend your ability to stay here. Don't assume that you can't do it. Talk to somebody about it first. You may want to talk to an elder law attorney about what some of these alternatives are, but try to figure, or the people who are at assisted living. So, I'm going to make some assumptions. Let's go back to Frank and Mary. Remember, they got a house, it's worth quite a bit, but they also have other assets worth about $350,000. The IRA, the annuity, the bank accounts, and Frank's got income of $2,000 a month and Mary of $1,000. So their total income is $3,000 a month or $36,000 a year. So suppose Frank and Mary decide they're going to come here, but they really don't want to sell their house because they want to know, if possible, that at all times, if they really don't like it here, they can always go back home, right? And I get a lot of people that feel that way, and I can understand that. So, to start off with, if they move to assisted living, remember they're going to be, I'm assuming that the assisted living bill is $6,000 a month. Once again, that's going to vary depending on where you are, what the prices are. I'm assuming it's $6,000 a month or $72,000 a year. And initially, people will talk to me my Frank and Mary clients, and they'll say, well, that's just way too much, that's a lot of money. And they'll say, well, you know, to begin with though, a lot of your other expenses when you come here go away because you're not out buying food anymore. You're probably not going out to eat as much anymore. You're probably not driving as much anymore. You're certainly, well, in Frank and Mary's case, they're still paying taxes and stuff, but a lot of their expenses go way down. So I'm assuming in this case that Frank and Mary are paying $72,000 a year for their place, and that they're spending another $1,000 a month or $12,000 a year for fun, for the other stuff, right? For the occasional going out to eat, doing other stuff. So their expenses are $84,000 a year. Now remember, their income was $3,000 a month, or $36,000 a year. So if their expenses were that higher, with that other figure, if the expenses are 84 and their income is 36, their burn rate, the rate at which they have to spend their savings, is $48,000. $48,000 a year. And and using that and assuming that they've got $350,000 in extra cash, that's what we said, you know, they've got their house and they had $350,000. That means they're going to run out of money in 7.29 years. And if they are both 80 years old, that might scare them, because 7.29 years can come and go, and they may still be here. So they're a little bit nervous about this. So that's financing strategy number one. You don't do anything, you just spend your money. Well, what other alternatives are there? Well, remember, in the example that I gave you, they still have a house. So one thing that they could do is they could take a line of credit loan out on their house. Their house is worth $600,000. They could take a line of credit for half of that, which any bank will give them. Today's interest rate on that money is going to be lower than 4%, but assume that they're paying 4% interest on that money, or $1,000 a month. What that means is, remember, their income has stayed the same, it's $36,000. They now have a mortgage payment of $1,000 a month, and everything else, the assisted living plus fund, equaled $84,000. So if you add 84 and 12 for $96,000, and then you subtract their income of 36, that means their burn rate has gone up a little bit. It went up to $60,000 a year. Except, they now have a bigger pile of money to deal with, because now they have all the money they just got from the line of credit. And instead of having a pile of $650,000, or excuse me, a pile of $350,000, which they had, that's how much cash they had, they now have $650,000 because they've now thrown in the extra $300,000 that they just borrowed on their house. With having that much money, remember their burn rate is $60,000 a year, that money is going to last for 10.83 years, a lot longer. So that's financing option number 2. Number 3 is, and this is what happens most often, folks will come to assisted living, but they want to make sure they have their house. But after a while they get it, right? And they say, this is pretty nice, I like the assisted living. Or they move to a different assisted living, but they don't want to move back home. And they come to the point where they say, I want to sell my house. And incidentally, once they've moved out of their house, they need to sell the house within 5 years, because they need to be able to show, in order to avoid paying capital gains tax on the house, that they lived in the house for 2 of the last 5 years. So typically within the first 5 years, they're going to sell the house. If they do that, now they've got $600,000 extra dollars. Remember, the house was worth $600,000. So now they have a total of money pile of $950,000 instead of the original $350,000. Their income is still $36,000. That hasn't changed. But now their expenses are back to just being $84,000, which was the $72,000 that they were paying to the assisted living, plus $1,000 a month for fun. So in that situation, their burn rate is only $48,000 a year, and their money is going to last them 19.79 years. Now, if you're 80, you might feel comfortable with that number, knowing that your money is going to last you for another 20 years, right? And by the way, it may occur while you're here that over those 20 years your health deteriorates. As a matter of fact, one of the nice things about being here is, as Dixie pointed out, is that you can get more help while you're in your room. And that they also have, if you develop Alzheimer's, and if you're 85 or older, then your chances are 1 in 3 that that's going to happen. Then there's actually a memory care community that you can move to right here. Now, if that is the case, if that is the case, and you are needing a lot of assistance, and if that assistance is part of your bill, your monthly bill, then all of your monthly expense for the assisted living is tax deductible as a medical expense. If a medical professional has certified that either because you need a lot of supervision because you have dementia, or because you need assistance with at least 2 of the activities of daily living, which are eating, dressing, bathing, toileting, and walking across the room, transferring. If you need assistance with 2 of those, and if the cost of helping you get that assistance is built into your rent, your entire rent is a medical deduction for tax purposes. Now, that's not typically, especially significant to Frank and Mary because they're not paying taxes because their income is so low, right? But that's where their kids, Peter, Paul, and Mary, come in. Suppose that Peter is doing okay. Suppose he's a lawyer, God forbid, right? Suppose he's in Massachusetts, and he's a lawyer, and he is in a 28% federal tax bracket, which is very common. Trust me, it doesn't take long before you're in a 28% bracket. And the income tax across everybody in Massachusetts is 5%, which means that Peter is in a 33% tax bracket, which means for every dollar he earns, he's paying the state and the federal government 33 cents in taxes. Well, if Frank and Mary gave their money to Peter, now this only works if you trust your son. You know, if you don't trust your son, then you can't do this because he's going to take all your money. But if you trust him, if you give your money to Peter and then you have him pay the assisted living bill instead of you paying the assisted living bill, then Peter gets to take all of the assisted living bill as a medical deduction. Because by paying that bill, he is paying more than 50% of all of your living expenses, which means you become a dependent of his for tax purposes, and he gets to take the deduction. Now, if he is paying your $72,000 a year assisted living bill, and he takes that deduction, he's reducing his taxes by $23,760. Now, if he's not nice, he's going to keep that. But if he likes you, right, and after all, he is your son, if he likes you and leaves that money in the pot for you, what he has really done is he has increased the amount of money that you have available to spend on assisted living by 33%. And the result of that is, as far as or if he just gives you that money. So what happens as a result of this, Frank and Mary end up with their old income, $36,000, right? Then figure that they're getting this gift from Peter every year of the tax deduction money that Peter saved of $23,760. As a result, their income just went up to $59,760 every year. At that income amount, their income plus the gift is $59,000. Remember, their expenses are the assisted living plus their fund money, which is $84,000, which means their burn rate is now down to $24,240 a year. At that rate, they can live here for 39 years, right? If they get here at 80, that's probably going to take care of it. There is an additional strategy that is available, specifically if Frank or Mary were veterans, which would allow, and in that situation, if they are needing significant help, just this is the same as the medical deduction standard. If they need help with the activities of daily living, and if the cost of that help is built into their rent, then they are entitled to a veteran's benefit per month, which can be as high as $2,000 a month. It's a huge, huge benefit. Right? So that is just in addition to all of the other strategies. For further information on that one, though, the getting qualified for that veteran's benefit is a specialty. This person's name is in your folder. Talk to her. This is probably one of the great national experts on this. She actually lives in Marlborough, and her office is in Sudbury. She is doing a presentation here shortly, or she already did. November 4th, she is going to be here to do a presentation on these issues. Nobody knows this stuff better than Patty Servais does. So, talk to her. So finally, if you were just loving this presentation, but you want to see it again, Frank and Mary have their own YouTube channel. and it will be up on YouTube. Ashland Cable TV will be rebroadcasting this, and I'm looking at the camera, and actually looking at the cameraman to say thank you very much for being here and helping us out, and we really appreciate it, and we appreciate the fact that Ashland Cable is willing to rebroadcast this. As I say, this is a real additional asset to Ashland for people who live here or people who have kids who live here and want to be close to their kids but not that close. You know, you want to be close in case there's an emergency, but you don't want to be sharing the bathroom, you know. So assisted living is a great alternative in those cases. So thank you very much to you for coming. The goal of all of this planning that I've talked about is peace of mind. Hopefully this may have given you some options that help you with that peace of mind. Thank you very much. And thank you.